Hey guys, we are back for another couple chapters of One for the Murphys. Today we're going to be reading chapters 14 and 15, and chapter 14 is titled, There's No Crying in Baseball. It's been almost a week since Miss Murphy turned that cop to dust. I've been drawn to her more, but I'm afraid too. Careful not to get too close. At school I try to avoid Tony, who hates me for existing, and Rainer, who actually has a reason to wish me dead. Every time he sees me now, he calls me Oliver. Here at the house, I pretend to do homework, but really just read since I went with Miss Murphy and the boys to the Glastonbury Library. The most amazing library ever, in a huge old white brick house. Miss Murphy has gone upstairs to tuck the smaller boys into bed, and I'm left alone with Mr. Murphy. I think he'd pack me up and mail me somewhere if he could. I watch him watch the game. It's boring until a cute guy with dark hair and eyes comes up to bat. He looks like he plans to knock the ball into next week. I like that. He hits it by the pitcher and runs to first base. He's fast, like me. I'm a little startled when Mr. Murphy speaks to me. So, you like baseball? Well, I like him, I blurt out. He smiles as he looks back to the screen. Well, I like him too, but somehow I don't think it in the same way you do. I'm embarrassed. A while later, a player from the other team hits a ball over a big green wall called the Green Monster. I watch Mr. Murphy. That's just wicked great, he says. I knew it was time to go to the bullpen. Well, makes sense to me that he hit it over that wall, I say, studying the Citgo sign that fills the sky right behind the monster. He looks at me as if I've betrayed him. I point at the screen. Well, look, there's a big invitation right there. The letters in Citgo say, See It Go. He stares at the screen for only a second before cracking up, which I like. He shakes his head. Julie tells me you have an interesting take on the world. I must look worried. I mean, it's a good thing, Carly. She says you're clever. She does? I mumble. Yes, she does, and you know, a smart man doesn't argue with his wife. He winks before seeming to laugh to himself, and I decide that maybe baseball isn't so bad after all. Chapter 15 is called Birds of a Feather. Birds of a feather. Have you heard that phrase before? I've heard it before, and I've heard the whole phrase. I think it goes, birds of a feather flock together, meaning that people who are the same stick together in a group. I wonder what that will have to do with the chapter. Today will be both my 16th day here and my birthday. I figured that God was trying to tell me something by having me come to the world on April Fool's Day. Now I know he was. I was born at 9:32 a.m. Exactly at that time last year, my mother called me at school, telling the secretary it was a family emergency and she needed to speak to me immediately. When I got to the phone, I heard the happy birthday song sung to Carly Cakes, which was pathetic enough, but then she went into our song, as she has called it forever. We're pals together, rootin' pals, tootin' pals, birds of a feather. I loved it. Today there will be no calls. I doubt she knows where I am, but I wonder if she's awake and better and thinking of me today. She used to say it was the day she met her most favorite ever person. I hear Miss Murphy scream downstairs, followed by a laughing and then complaining. Mr. Murphy and the boys are laughing too, so I hurry to the kitchen. For April Fool's Day, Mr. Murphy had put an elastic band around the hand sprayer on the sink, so when Miss Murphy turned on the water, she got shot in the chest. He was falling about laughing at her, but she was laughing too. She smacked him on the arm, kissed him on the cheek, and then vowed revenge. A strange combination of things to do. They seem like little kids. Something about it has stuck in my head all morning since. I guess the Murphys don't know it's my birthday since there were no juggling clowns in the kitchen. I'm happy and disappointed at the same time. I'm in Reuben's class, a fifth of a second, when that fool Rainer asks, Oliver, do you want some more rolls? I'm so sick of him that I say, So, Rainer, what's your last name anyway? Is it Shine? Because if your name is Rainer Shine, you should be a great mailman, or maybe even a meteorologist. His friends laugh, but he looks mad, and I wonder if he's not going to out me when Mr. Reuben starts hitting his own desk with a pointer. Call to order, ye peasants! Mr. Reuben wears a suit today. He brushes his lapel and says, As you can see, it's a special occasion. On this most glorious morning, I will explain the details of your term projects, which will comprise 30% of your final grade. I will also assign you partners. Collective groan. He holds up his hand. Now, hear me out. He begins to pace, rubbing his palms together. Although everyone changes the world around them, immediate family, etc., There are few people that have changed the world globally. He spins toward us. Now, these people have tended to be intelligent, tenacious, and good communicators, but the attribute that helped them truly succeed in their endeavors was the inclination and ability to kick some major backside. There's hooting and howling. He puts his hand up. Yes, yes, I knew you'd like that. He points to himself. I dressed up today in honor of these people. People like Nicholas Copernicus, who went around spouting off silly ideas about the sun being the center of the universe, not the earth. He was criticized and thought a fool for his refusal to back off what he believed to be fact, but now, hundreds of years later, he's known as the father of modern astronomy. Rayner speaks up. Does Mandy know that the sun is the center of the universe? I think she thinks it's her. Mandy glares while the rest of the class laughs. Mr. Rubin sobers up a bit. Uncalled for, Mr. Tibbs. Rayner smiles. Hey, I'm not afraid to kick some major backside. But to what end? Mr. Rubin laughs and holds his hands up. No pun intended. And then he looks at Rayner. There's a big distinction there now, isn't there? There are different ways to change the world. I'm sure, Mr. Tibbs, that you'll change it for the better. By moving back to his native planet, Mandy snaps. Now, children, he leans against his desk. We're going to focus on people that have changed the world for the good. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Adolf Hitler certainly changed our world forever, but he left behind a wake of trauma and pain. Remember, Adolf Hitler was the leader of the Holocaust? Remember, we read about the Holocaust in Prisoner B3087, so we can make a little text-to-text connection there. This teacher of Carly's is saying that Adolf Hitler changed the world for the worse. He left behind trauma and pain. Maybe he was mad that his parents named him Adolf, a voice adds. Mild laughter. Mr. Rubin continues. But what about Anne Frank? His body is still jumpy, but his eyes are sad. Now this was a girl hunted simply because she was Jewish, hid from the Nazis for nearly 2 years. All the while she keeps a diary that is published 2 years after the war. A war she did not survive. Yet she says in her diary that she still believed that man was essentially good. That changed the world. A girl speaks. I understand it was terrible and everything, but how could she change the world just by writing a diary? Because she put a face to the atrocities of the Nazi death camps. She taught everyone a very poignant lesson of the dangers and horrors of war and prejudice, and the importance of standing up for what's right and good in the world. Like beef jerky, Rayner asks. No one laughs. We stare at a picture of Anne Frank that Mr. Rubin holds up, a girl who could be in any of our classes. She looks so happy, and I can't help but wonder if she had any idea what would happen to her. I feel embarrassed for ever feeling sorry for myself when I look at her. Mr. Rubin turns and puts this photo down on his desk. He turns back around, slowly. So, you'll choose a person that has changed the world for good. It can be from any period in history. He takes a deep breath. Any questions so far? Nothing but silent, hunched-over kids. Mr. Rubin claps loudly, and I jump. Now for the good part. He takes a deep breath. William Shakespeare, a man who changed the world with his quill pen, loved to write tragedy. Plays dripping with human conflict and emotion. So, in the spirit of the bard, prepare thyselves, for I'm prepared to hurl an emotional plundering. He rubs his palms together again. I've decided that you shall all, he makes his little quotation marks in the air, suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. He smiles. I've not only chosen your partners, but I've given you partners that I know you do not get along with, or people you have little in common with. Everyone wakes up, including me. I can't work with Rayner. I can't. Oh yes, I'll do this, force you to work together and invite conflict, because I want you to think about what the world would be like if we all worked to understand people who are different than we are. Rayner calls out, I'm going to work with me, myself, and I. We don't get along, but for the good of the project. Mr. Rubin smiles. Actually, you're going to work with Mandy Fleming. Total relief. Mandy slaps her desk with both hands and fumes. That'll be the day. Actually, that doesn't fit your rule, Mr. Rubin, Rayner says. There's no denying that Mandy worships me. She whips her head around. In your dreams. More like in my nightmares, he smirks. Mr. Reuben begins. Now, let's see. Beginning at the top of the list, Miss Byers, that's Tony's last name. Miss Byers, you'll work with Carly Connors. Total relief turns to panic. I'm afraid to look over at her. That's not fair, she says. Ah, yes, it's not fair. The mantra of teenagers everywhere. He turns to her. That's right, my young maiden. Sometimes life isn't fair. Another lesson to be learned here. He doles out the rest of the partnerships, and from the reaction he gets, he must really notice things about people. All right, and that's where Chapter 15 ends. Be sure to tune in today to the Flipgrid discussion, and be sure to check back for replies to your posts too. Hope you guys have an awesome day.